Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. And we are really glad to be here. A little bit of a different situation for us today because we are coming to you live on location. We are not at home in our normal, I like to say studio.
Dining room.
Our dining room that's set up as a studio.
As a studio. Who needs a dining room anymore anyway?
Yeah, for real. So we usually do our podcast from home, and we do have a nice little setup, and we're not at home. And so we were very prepared, and we brought our podcast equipment with us, mainly because we wanted to invite you into what we're doing this week. And so as a part of that, and part of inviting you into what we've been doing, we also wanted to encourage you and your spouse to do something very similar to what we've done. Now, ours had a different purpose. We'll talk about that just a little bit. But what we really wanted to stress is something that one of our favorite marriage gurus is Ted Cunningham. We love Ted Cunningham. And he's a pastor of a church in Branson, Missouri, but he does lots of marriage retreats and speaking on marriages and books and all kinds of stuff. And we had a chance to go see him and Gary Smalley several years ago when we were just coming out of our marriage crisis, and it was such a huge part of our healing process. And so anyway, one of the things that he teaches to do three things as a couple. One is to have a daily delay, which is your daily time check-in.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Just to make sure that you're on the same page about stuff and really just kind of to check on each other's hearts.
Yeah.
So a daily delay, a weekly withdrawal, and that's where he talks about having date night and getting away once a week is what he encourages you to do, to get away from the kids. And it may not, it doesn't always look the same.
Sure.
And for
it can be something after they go to bed, or it could be a literal date night.
Yep, and different seasons of life,
yep.
Different things, obviously. And then the third thing is the annual abandon. And that's when you just, once a year at least, you just abandon everything back home and you get away just to hang out with your spouse. So how important is that?
Oh, I think it's very important. And I'm just sitting here listening to you describe them. And really, we kind of combined 2 and 3 because we didn't abandon our children at home. Like, it's not just us.
Right. Well, okay, we'll come back to that in just a second because I think that that's a good way for us to talk about how people make excuses.
That's right.
For doing that.
Yeah.
So
but I think in general those three things are exceedingly important. It's daily checking in with your spouse to see how their heart is, to see how their day's going. Texts throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Just check-ins to let them know you're thinking about them and that you're on, that they are on your mind. And, I know how much it means to me when you just text and are like, how's your day going?
Mm-hmm.
Or I know that you had this today. How is that? How did it go?
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that that your spouse is thinking about you, but being purposeful in checking in and see how they're doing, how something went, I think is important. And then the second one you mentioned was the weekly, what did he call it?
Weekly withdrawal.
Weekly withdrawals. And I love to think back through our seasons that we've had and how we made that work. And sometimes it was just, hey, me and you, let's meet on the couch after the kids are asleep,
Mm-hmm.
like that, maybe the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then other weeks it was, hey, let's get a babysitter and let's go somewhere out on a date.
Yep.
So, and I think a good combination of those two things is realistic, I don't think one or the other. You shouldn't always meet me on the couch or meet me on the trampoline for a picnic, after the kids are asleep or whatever. You don't need to just do those, but then it's unrealistic to think you can go out to eat on a date once a week too, financially. And, it just becomes a problem for a lot of people.
Yep.
And then the annual
Annual
abandon.
And we just, we call it annual getaway.
Yeah.
Yearly trip, yearly getaway, whatever.
Yeah, any of those things. And I think are just really, really important because you're putting the focus back on what it should be on. And it's so easy in so many different seasons to lose sight of that, or to think next year we'll do that, or, we'll do that later. And then later just gets further and further and further away. So I think it's important.
Yeah, and I think that can look different in different annual trips too. So, sometimes it's just, let's get away with no agenda, nothing to do, just hang out together and have a good time to reconnect and just be together. Those are awesome. And then there's also, sometimes you just have to make time to get together and talk and dream and, sort of plan for the future, because I just feel like a lot of people don't talk about their dreams as married couples. And, after they get married, they just sort of get into life, and then it's, you don't really sit down and say, what are you really thinking? Where do you see us 5 years from now? And just to sit down and do that with, without distractions, and just, you're not having to fold clothes and worrying about the pets and all that kind of stuff. And so that's actually what we did. We are on that retreat right now. And people may be thinking, well, y'all aren't doing it right because you're doing a podcast. And, well, ours had a more of a reason behind it. So just to let everybody in on our world, we, a month or so ago, somebody blessed us with the ability to have a little bit of a consultation, I guess you could say, some coaching maybe, with someone that kind of specialized in ministry and just, dreaming and stuff. And so we have been sort of on this journey of, man, we want to prepare resources and, topics and all that kind of stuff that really reaches you guys, our listeners, and the people that we have contact with through our story and through our podcast and our marriage ministry. And so we were just encouraged by him to get away and just spend a day or two or whatever just dreaming and planning. And so that's what we did. It took us a long time to actually find the actual date that we could go. And so when we started talking about this podcast, we were like, let's just kind of let people into our world a little bit so they'll know that that's what we're doing. And then at the same time, I think that the way we did it can sort of, I guess,
inspire.
Yeah, inspire, but also it can just shoot down some of the excuses that people make, because we know, like, people, it's easy for you to listen to us and say, oh, an annual abandon, like, there's no time for that. There's no money for that. We, the season of our life is too crazy. There's no way to do it. So we're just going to say we're actually in a season where we could have done it a different way, but we did it this way, and now we can say to you, hey, there's ways to handle this, and now you don't have any excuses.
Right.
So
inspire. I said inspire, like inspire you to be creative.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
okay. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, so first of all,
$0.
That's right. Well, we did gas.
Well, we did
It
pay
does.
gas.
Yes. So we're not in our hometown. So we drove a distance away, but it's a place where some family has allowed us to use for the weekend because they're not here.
Yeah.
I mean, how awesome is that?
That's
to
right.
be able to, share space with someone.
That's right.
So they're not here. They live on, a farm, basically. And so we're just in nature, which
Yep.
is awesome. We are away. We're abandoned. We have abandoned things,
Right.
and we came to a beautiful place that's
Because if we tried to do this in our home, let's be real, I'd be like, let me just fold these clothes.
right. That's right.
Let's go take the dog. It just, the phone, all the things.
Yeah.
Distraction, distraction, distraction. And so when you're away from the normal, from your responsibilities, from, I don't have any clothes here to fold. Like those things are not here. And so it just allows you freedom to concentrate on yourselves for a little while.
And then there's always we have kids. What do we do with our kids?
That's right.
And that's tough, we know. And depending on the stage that they're in, when you have little kids, you don't have much of an option. You need to
get somebody to watch
You got to
them.
get somebody to watch them, whether that's a family member or take them to a family member's house and let them stay there just for the night. I mean, whatever it is. But you can be creative. But for us, we have one that's in college, so obviously that's not an issue. We have another one that's 16 years old. And so he is certainly capable of staying with a friend or, really staying even at home by himself if he wanted to. But again, we were just like, hey, let's figure this out and let's be creative. And so we said, bring a friend.
Yeah.
And bring a friend and entertain yourselves and don't bother us.
Exactly. I literally said, do not bother me unless it's 911.
Yeah.
No.
And so he ended up bringing a couple of friends. And honestly, we saw them at lunch. But besides that, we don't, they're having a big time, I guess, somewhere.
Freezing outside.
But they're playing. They're having a good time. They're enjoying being out in nature and stuff. And we've had our chance to sit and talk and pray and dream. And it's been fun. And so here we are now. And we're sitting in this room that
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
There's 13 giant Post-it notes all over the walls of this room that we're in. And it's a little overwhelming, but it's so awesome to just take like dreams and your future and just sort of put it on paper, big pieces of paper, big pieces of paper, and to just be able to kind of look and go, man, this is exciting what God wants to do through us and to be able to continue to reach marriages. And so we've just sort of spent, several hours and basically the whole day just sort of dreaming and praying and really looking at things that we can do to help marriages, as we, move into the future. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And I just want to say this. So Heather, as you look around at all of this stuff, we lead busy lives, we have, I run a ministry, you are a school teacher, and these are all things that we just want to figure out, how can we incorporate all of this into our lives to make an impact in marriages. And so when you look around at all these things on the wall, like our listeners that are listening to us, what do you want to say to them? And what do you want to say? How can they help us, or what can they do? And that was really catching you off guard because I didn't.
Well, I think where I thought you were going with that is when I look around at all of this, really what comes to my mind more than anything else is how much fun it is to be a team.
That's good.
Like, it is so much fun to be a team and be on the same page and pray together and think together. And just one of the sweetest moments of the whole day was just us at the very beginning crying out to God and saying, we want what you want. Like, we want our hearts to beat just like yours does, and whatever that looks like for us. And show us how to be a team. Show us how to journey together well. And I think that's such an amazing thought, whether you're planning what God wants you to do with your marriage ministry or whether you're just whatever that is that you and your spouse are thinking about or dreaming about, or it could be a dream of how are we going to get through the next day. Like it doesn't have to look like our dream weekend, but just being on the same page and being a team with you is just such a sweet reminder of what marriage is supposed to look like. And I think that was rekindled today, in that looking at all of these huge Post-it notes, we did this together in asking God to show us where he wants us to go with this. And I just think that that's a sweet thing. So as far as what can they do, I just want our listeners to know that we are very, very passionate about marriage ministry and are excited about what God is going to do through our story. And of course, we've dreamed huge and big. And I hope that we can look back one day on these Post-it notes and think, you remember when we said we have 416 followers, and putting, just putting words to things that we can see God doing through this. And so just knowing, I just think that them hearing us say that we are crying out to God and saying, what do you have for us? And just asking them to come alongside us in that.
Yeah, that's really good. And it is fun to be a team. And so I hope that that's an encouragement to people, other marriages that are listening to this. Like, maybe that needs to be your first annual abandon, is that you just get away and you learn how to be a team again. And, as I was looking around just how, we started just putting some real meat to a lot of things that we want to do. We've mentioned on here before that we've started writing a book, but just to actually sit down and think through what does the book need to say, what is the message, and to actually put some real meat to that and some planning, and then even our marriage coaching and how there's just a lot of stuff that's coming that we're excited about doing and offering. And I just I guess we can kind of end with this, and I knew this was going to be a little bit shorter, but this is our annual abandon.
Absolutely. And not only that, that's a change, because usually we're like, sorry, we went a few minutes long.
Yeah.
So they'll probably be like, oh.
Well, this was just offering you into our world for a minute while also giving you some inspiration and encouragement. But just the timing of God and how cool it is. So we were we were on the computer because we were looking up some definitions and things that we were trying to put on these big, huge Post-it notes. And I just so happened to check our email, and it always sends us, like, if somebody leaves a review on our podcast, it sends something and tells us that there's a new review. And so this was literally in the middle of while we're sitting here planning and dreaming and just, thinking about things. And this came through, and this was a 5-star review, or a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, and then also this review. So I just wanted to read it real quick. It just says, "I'm so thankful I found this podcast. Funny thing is, this is the first podcast I've ever listened to. It was definitely placed in front of me by God. I went a little out of order and started with season 2 because that's what I needed most. Then I went back and started over. I don't listen every day, and sometimes I'll listen to several episodes at one time. But each time I feel like it was the perfect timing for what I needed at that moment. Thank you, Rusty and Heather." And, I just...
We don't know those people.
No, but what a huge encouragement. And so, that's part of what I want to say, when I was asking you, how can people help? We always say, leave a rating and a review because it helps. Well, you don't know when we say that it helps to get our podcast in front of more people, but you have no idea at what time. I think this was actually, there's a delay. And when you put a review, and I think it was done on Friday, but we got it today in the middle of when we were doing our retreat, basically. And I just think that's so cool. This person We don't know them. They have, I hope that they listen to this and they'll know that what a huge encouragement they were to us and the timing of it. I mean, that's just, I don't know. It's just so neat. So anyway, but looking at things that you can do to help us, I mean, that would be one thing that I would encourage you to do, is just to, word of mouth is a huge thing, to be able to share, our podcast and what we're doing through our marriage ministry with other people, with, your church. If there's opportunities for us to come and speak and to share with a group at your church, we would love to do that. But so much of that, like, we just have to depend on God. We have to depend on God that He's going to put that in front of the right people. And, as you share things that you see on social media and share our podcast with other people, you're helping to make a difference in somebody's marriage. And so, just want to encourage you to do that. And that's a great way that it blesses, that you can bless us. So, but yeah, we're going to be coming home. So probably by the time you listen to this, we'll be at home. But this was fun, and it was great to be able to get away. And I hope that you will be able to take some time to get away with you and your spouse sometime in the next year. Go ahead and put it on the calendar now. Let's start planning that so that you can have that opportunity. So anything before we
That's it.
sign off? All right. Well,
thank y'all for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a listener and for blessing us. And we will see you next time.